You write a birthday card to every single person in the company. That means that at a bare minimum, you're thinking of each single person that contributes to the company once a year. Now, writing 175 birthday cards, it's a lot to do, but every time I do it, I get to reflect, and also shows them that I do appreciate what they do, because some of them are doing dangerous jobs or working in areas that are dangerous, working on major roadways, not the safest thing. And I'm tickled to death to have people willing and wanting to do it, excited to do it. I feel I owe it to show all of them some love and, care.
You're on a mission, and you just need more people to know about it. And whether you're brand new to marketing or a seasoned pro, we are all looking for answers to make marketing decisions with purpose. I'm Monica Pitts, a techie, crafty business owner, mom, and aerial dancer who solves communication challenges through technology. This podcast is all about digging in and going digital. I'll share my marketing know-how and business experience from almost 20 years of misadventures. I'll be your backup dancer, so you can stop doubting and get moving towards marketing with purpose. So hello again, and welcome back to Marketing with Purpose. I'm Monica Pitts, and today, as promised, I have a special guest with me, Chris West. Now, one of our podcast goals this year is sharing more success stories, highlighting businesses who are building amazing culture, processes, and marketing. And we're doing this because, I don't know about you, but when I hear stories of people finding success, it really motivates me, and it gives me a new perspective, and it gets my wheels turning to find new paths and opportunities to better my own business and myself as a leader. So hopefully that does the same for you, and hopefully Chris gives you some inspiration. So I have with me Chris West, who is president of West Contracting, and we have been lucky enough to work with you, Chris, for quite a few years now through a few website upgrades, and I get to be your print designer a lot of the times. I don't know if you know that, but most of your designs actually come off of my desk. So I have read a lot. Oh, and I'm your videographer too.
I appreciate that. I didn't know the boss took those over. So
yeah, I get all these odd projects that the rest of the staff, it's not in their core skill set because they're web developers, right? And so those things I get to do. So thank you for letting me do fun things for you. And one of the things that I have really enjoyed about doing your design work is that you have so many photos throughout the years because your business has been around for so long. It's been around for 3 generations. So I love the scrapbook pages that your mom makes. Your mom makes those, right?
One of her friends does.
One of her friends? Okay. And they're in your office?
Yes, we've got a receptionist that found a whole nother scrapbook that she's making big billboards, and they're very cool. And it reminded me of a story my grandparents had told me a long time ago. My grandpa rented a house in Leesburg to an ex-felon that actually broke out of prison and was a bank robber. And got caught.
Perfect.
And he had no idea. Hey, but that guy paid his rent on time every month in cash.
Boom. Can't judge a book by its cover.
She was asking me how the story was relevant, and because there was no mention of my grandpa in there. I said, oh man, I never thought I'd even find that newspaper article. So glad we still have it. Kept everything.
I feel like the scrapbooks on the walls of your office kind of speak to me a little bit about your office culture. They might actually speak to me a lot about your office culture and the way that you guys work together as a company. And I know that this last year you've been really, really focused on that. You've been in a cycle of change and reevaluating your internal structure, figuring out what works and what doesn't. I feel like a lot of us are kind of doing that right now as we become adults in our businesses. We've kind of grown up in them, some of us. So tell me about that. Tell me about your company culture. Tell me about West Contracting. How'd you end up as president? All those things.
That's a lot.
I know. Okay, let's start over. Tell me how you ended up as president. Let's start there.
I'll tell you a little bit about myself and then kind of that journey over the last, almost 30 years. But I was born and raised in Kirkwood, Missouri. Lived there really until I went to college. Played a lot of sports growing up, anything and everything. Soccer, baseball, basketball. I was not very good at basketball because I
finished growing at 5'5". I was on a swim team, a dive team at a little neighborhood pool. Really enjoyed hockey. I played hockey from 8 or 9 years old until really COVID hit. Everything shut down. And then I realized I needed to stop going to the chiropractor and try and focus on work a little bit more. But even to this day, I mean, I'm not a big sports junkie, but anything active in that sense, we'll take our kids to a swimming pool close to our house. They've got diving boards and big platforms, and I will still go off the diving boards and do a 1.5, or go off the platforms and do a can opener. All the kids love it. My kids love it, and it gets them, I think it allows them to see me do it and then them want to do it and not be afraid of it. So,
Well, and to be able to like see you as an adult still having fun and still being active. I mean that so I'm a very active person. I run, I do aerial, and my kids just think that all moms are just like this, that they're all like actually circus performers, and they think it's totally normal. And I kind of like that for them, you know?
no, my wife says she's raising three children. So, I'd much rather be in that category than, the dad category. Have to be in the dad category some, but I attempt to live as much of my life in the kid category as I can. So you can still be a kid when you're older and actually run a business. Just, you have to also be cognizant of when to get out of kid mode into adult mode.
Good advice.
Beyond that though, I played hockey all the way through high school and then inline hockey in college, after college. But in my years growing up in St. Louis, we spent a lot of time in the country. My grandparents were from Leesburg and Steelville, respectively. So, as some of my time was spent in the city, there were a lot of weekends spent out in the country. We still have both places that my grandparents had bought in those towns, and cell phones don't work, and it's always a good place to go to reset. I kind of took on a love of fishing, and I'm still able to do that. And I think it's what has helped me out too, is having both a city and growing up with a city and a country culture. We've got a lot of workers that live in, the country, and understanding that I still enjoy that aspect of life as well, I think goes a long way. At 18, graduated high school. If anyone from St. Louis is listening to this, I went to SLU High. That is not necessarily SLU, but that is a big deal on where you went to high school. My wife's from Indiana, so she still does not get that. But went to IU, Indiana University. They've got a great business school. After a year at Indiana, I probably screwed around too much. I did not even apply to the business school. I went in and became an economics major with minors in entrepreneurship and real estate. I'm glad that was my path. I really became a social being there, and that has helped me network a lot after college and, into this day. Luckily, too, I did screw around a little bit too much my freshman year because I had to stay for a 9th semester, and that's when I met my wife. So met her in October of
2005. Pretty much been together ever since. So,
Question for you. So you knew that you were going to come into the family business as a kid, really, right? So tell me about your decision to go to college instead of just going to work. I find that interesting because my cousins, a lot of them are farmers. Some of them went to college, some of them didn't, right? And some of them just went straight to the farm. And my dad always advocates that when you go to college, even if you know you're going to go into the family business, it like gives you this new outlook on how things can be done, and you can bring that new knowledge back to the company. So how did you feel about going to college? Was it just a rite of passage, or were you resistant?
no, not resistant at all. And it really, my grandfather was a huge proponent of education. And he grew up on a little tiny road in Leesburg, didn't graduate 8th grade, and went to World War II, came back and was a truck driver for my grandma's family's asphalt business. Eventually they fell in love, got married, broke off, and started what is now West Contracting, rival paving company. But I think, he had to do business the hard knock way. And I think whether us kids went into the business or his grandkids went into the business or not, he realized the importance of education and really wanted us all, to go to good grade school, good high school, in a good college. And if it were, right to come back and work for the family business, so be it. If not, at least you're educated and can do something else. And you don't see a lot of people going to college these days and say, I want to come out of college and go work in asphalt and concrete.
But it actually is a great industry. We serve a lot of asphalt paving companies. We actually work for multiple associations for the asphalt paving community industry. And there are a lot of myths, I feel like, that people conceive about the industry that aren't right. So maybe you could tell us one or two things about those. Like, they think it's just going to be super low pay. They think there's not going to be any room to grow. But I know that's not true. I mean,
People's perception is probably from Micro's dirty jobs that he did, I think, with the paving crew. And I mean, I will tell you in the field, there are some jobs that can be nasty, but it's few and far between. And a lot of the people that, are in the field, yeah, it doesn't have to be a dirty, nasty job. And what I can say is everyone in the field actually makes a very good living working 9 to 10 months a year. We are a union company, but we also do a lot of MoDOT or DOT prevailing wage work where men and women's compensation is upwards of $70 an hour. That's more than a lot of office people make if you break it down per hour. Then within, call it within the office, we've got project managers, project engineers, estimators, full operation staff that we need, IT and technology help. Got schedulers that are managing, 175 different people sending in and out every day. We've got people that oversee our equipment, mechanics that oversee our equipment. There are a lot of different possibilities, whether you are, call it construction oriented or not. Logistics has become a huge thing in our industry. And I mean, really, there's a class A CDL shortage per se, and difficulty getting trucks. That, and people are looking at a labor shortage. Any conference, industry event, whatever I go to, everyone complains about labor and trucking. And I tell everyone around here, probably on a weekly basis, we are really lucky because we are not short on either of those. We've treated our customers right, the people that work for us right, all the truckers right. So it's when you treat people well, you get treated well back. And that's been really a mainstay even since my grandparents. We were very quick pay, that. From day one, that was something, even if my grandparents had to dig into their pockets, when a bill came in, they paid it right away. And that's pretty much the same today, and why we get good pricing, but also good customer service from other companies that we deal with. I think I strayed away from the question, but it's relatively fascinating how much technology has changed in the industry and what it actually does for kind of the end user of a road, but also the sustainability. Bring up a hot word. We did, and I think I said that in one of my videos, but we paved a small section of 63 from Vichy to Vienna and we used ground tire rubber in the mix. And I did the math, and it was like 16,500 tires, like in a 7-mile section that was like a thin lift. There are a lot of environmental problems that they've started to look at the asphalt industry to help with. And it in a matter of years could make a dramatic impact. And what better place to hide shit than in roads? No, no. It's funny though. There's two guys that essentially engineer that. It's called engineered crumb rubber. It's like a rubber dust, but they're the ones that take the tires, grind it, get the metal out, pre-coat it with some material. But the asphalt industry, even call it worldwide, could solve like tire problem in like probably a year. Like if everyone went that way, like that's how quickly we could get rid of them if everyone was on board. Yeah, shingles, they're glass for a while, but plastics and rubber are the two that are becoming a bigger deal. It's coming, so it'll be interesting. Yeah, yeah.
so you have a lot of employees, like a lot. Sometimes I feel so we have 8. And sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not even keeping up with what they're all doing. Like Rebecca got a new mouse light from Kara, who's our office momager, for her birthday, and she was thanking me for it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't have anything to do with this cool mouse light that Kara got you. This was just what, like, way to go, Kara, right? And there's only 8 of us.
It was on a company credit card. That's why. That's
yeah,
why.
yeah, I know. Well, tell me about how you keep your culture like so family oriented and so personal over there. I feel like you mentioned that in college it helped you learn how to be more social and good at interacting with people, which is a big part of your job right now is interacting with people. But what do you do to show them that they're important and keep your culture like positive and keep people around?
And I'll backtrack a little bit here. You were talking about a bunch of our old pictures we've got upstairs, and we've got pictures from the late 50s all the way to now. But we really have a lot from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. You see a lot of the same people in those pictures, over a 20 or 30-year spread. And that's the same today. There have kind of been periods where you had a huge group of people here and inevitably they retired or left the business, and there was kind of a whole new swath, probably the wrong word to use, but everyone says it too. And looking at them, they're like, this is so cool that, this guy is in 3 different boards from 3 different sets of decades. I think that, and I started out as a kid working here when I was 13. When I moved back to St. Louis in 2010, a lot of the same people were here, whether they were in the field or had been in the field and were in the office. I would see people transition to different parts of the company and stay here for a long period of time. And that's been something we have always been proud of. And I think why a lot of people to this day, we hire someone, and right now I think the current tenure of an employee or even of a millennial is 2 or 3 years. We've got millennials that started with us 7, 8 years ago and are still here. There's, our field has some turnover, but not nearly as much as other companies. Actually, pretty rare, but our office has very little turnover. We're really at that point, right now of developing the people that are going to be here with me, hopefully for the next 20 or 30 years. Some of them have already been here 8, 10, 15 years. That's kind of been the focus the last year. And along with maintaining the culture of the past. I'm a firm believer you treat people like family and expect to be treated, by them like family, which can be hard in a business environment, but it is possible.
And sometimes when you run into the employees that like feel like the family members that maybe you don't want to go spend Thanksgiving with, you're like, oh man, this did not work out the way I thought it was going to.
So a couple years ago, we joined a peer group of other contractors similar to us. We don't compete. We're from all over the U.S. There's six different companies, and one of the guys brought up that he writes a Christmas card, or not a Christmas card, a birthday card to every employee, and he was hoping the following year to include wives. And I really took that to heart. And thinking about it, I'm like, you write a birthday card to every single person in the company. That means that at a bare minimum, you're thinking of each single person that contributes to the company once a year. Now, typically you're going to see them, and speak with them much more than that, but that has gone over really well. Now, writing 175 birthday cards, and I put a $25 gift certificate or gift card in there. It's a lot to do, but every time I do it, I get to reflect. And, now in the last couple of years, there are a few people, I know most people in the company by name. There's a couple I'll have to figure out at the Christmas party or when I am on a crew. I'm like, all right, who's this guy? And happy birthday, got your card right here. But I think that helps me stay in touch with them and also shows them that I do give a shit about them and appreciate what they do, because some of them are doing dangerous jobs or working in areas that are dangerous. Just inherently in what we do, working on major roadways, not the safest thing. And I'm tickled to death to have people willing and wanting to do it and, excited to do it. So I feel I owe it to show all of them some love and, care.
So you came back from college and there were a lot of the people still working in the business that you worked with while you were a kid. And I've heard you say before that you were not raised with a silver spoon. You were given a shovel.
I say rusty
I
shovel.
a rusty shovel. And I kind of want to hear a little bit more about that. Like, because I think that the way that your father and potentially even grandfather brought you into the business probably had a lot to do with the respect that you were still afforded when you came back from college, because you were viewed as like a coworker, as a person that was going to work hard, somebody who could be trusted, if that makes sense. And I think that might have had something to do with the way that you were put to work and managed. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I 100% agree that I don't think I would be where I am, um, whether it be personally or professionally, if I didn't work throughout my teenage years and even into my 20s, over the summers, of course, for the business. I still remember it to this day, and I have the IRS proof. It was in 96. My dad, hey, do you ever want to work for the company or ever want to run it? Yeah. Okay. Well, you're going to start working this summer. I was like, oh shit! Like, really? None of my other friends even have jobs. Like, no one's even a lifeguard yet. Couldn't drive. I couldn't even drive. Okay. And the first probably 13, 14, he'd bring me to the office at 6:30 in the morning, and weed eat, paint buildings, clean out gutters. I mean, there were fields that you'd be like, all right, cut all the weeds down that field. Here's a machete and a weed eater. I don't know. I'd finish it in like a week and be like, all right, go do it again. Like, he was the first year, I think he was just trying to keep me busy and to see if I could handle, a hot Missouri summer, and really just be willing to put hard work in. Um, and so after probably 2 summers, because I know I was on cruise before I could drive, he would drive me in, and I started to go out on cruise. I think the first crew I was on was a chip seal crew. We spent like an entire summer chip sealing all the streets of Brentwood, which is where our office was. So it was easy for my dad to keep an eye on me, um, but also start to intermingle with guys that were out in the field, guys and gals out in the field. And really from, call it 15 to the time I was 21, every summer, there were 3 or 4 summers where I spent a little bit of time up north at an outdoors camp. But when I was in St. Louis, I was working on the cruise. And by the time I was 20, either 20 or 21, they put me on a night crew for the entire summer. And it was probably at 20, but it was, so I wasn't going to go party and have fun at, night with my friends. And it was probably one of the most grueling summers I had. Just, working night work is different. And we were on 44 between St. Clair and Sullivan, which we actually just repaved it a couple of years ago. So that one's already on its second leg for me. But I mean, it's 2 lanes, narrow shoulders, and it's scary. You got to have your head on a swivel. You got tractor trailers, flying by you at 55 miles an hour. We were doing a bunch of repair work on it, but I spent 3 months, working nights, seeing really the worst of what our guys and gals see when they're out on projects, just what they're dealing with. I think all of those summers, again, helped me meet, learn, work beside a lot of the people that were still there when I came back, but also get a good understanding and knowledge of what was going on. I didn't have to be the best field worker. I just had to show up and work my ass off and just be another person on the crew.
Sounds like your parents had a handle on how to keep you out of trouble, keep you humble, and keep you financially solvent. They did all three in one fell swoop.
I will say that I think that last summer was the first summer my dad put me in the union. So he paid me the family. Or I was taking the family discount prior to that, but when I actually was on the DOT jobs, I had to get in the union, and that was a good summer. I went back to school with more money than just about anyone.
Yeah, we have like my 13-year-old. So last year, I was really frustrated because I couldn't get my stuff scheduled right for our marketing. Like our intern was, she was a college intern, but she was like falling off the face of the earth basically. And I kept telling myself, I think I have an incredibly detailed, like 13-year-old, like she's very detail oriented. And I'm like, I swear she can do a better job than this 22-year-old. I swear she can. So I made training videos for her and I was like, here you go. And she just sat down and did it. And I would check her work and I would be like, and she did it right. It's like a miracle. Like, so and she's still proud of herself for it. And she's like, I'm doing that this summer, Mom, because I need to earn some money so I can buy a car when I turn 16 because she wants something fancy. And I'm not buying her anything fancy, and she knows it. Like, so,
My kids will have to sell their Legos off to get a nice car.
oh,
Probably have enough
those
too.
Legos are so pricey these days. Holy cow!
I know.
Like,
My kids build them
man,
in under a day and want another one. I'm like, mm-mm. Talk to
can't you
your
just
grandma.
take them apart and put them back together in another way? That's what I want to know. Like, I got him a book that has like all these different like Lego creatures and stuff that you can build in it, and they're like, no, we want to have like the actual kit to build this. And I'm like, that's not you're going to use the Legos that you have and this book to build these things. They're like, but the parts aren't exactly right. I'm like, it's called problem solving, children. So, they're not super excited about it. So next question. Now, I worked as part of my family business for years, and it was a really interesting dynamic. Really interesting. And so I wanted to know if you had any advice to share for people who are running a business with family. Any tips and tricks that really work for you guys? Especially, I feel like thinking back to when you were coming in out of college, you probably had fresh ideas. And then as you were coming into management, you had, initiatives that you wanted to instill. How was that working with your dad to get through those and getting him on board?
So, so actually, after college, I took and I think another positive thing that my dad had done. Both my sister and I wanted to come back and work in the company, but he wanted us to get experience working for someone else. Outside of the company, outside of the industry. If we cared or whatnot. And I ended up working for a boutique commercial real estate firm in Chicago, which I had a lot of friends from Indiana moving up to Chicago, and I think I was still not ready to quite move back to St. Louis. So I moved up there and essentially was commission based for 4.5 years, and it really took me a good 2 years to even get on my feet. And then the next couple years, we're good, but I got to the point I'd always told my dad, 5 years and I'll be back. At 4.5 years, I was really thinking about telling him like, I need another 5 years up here. But he was, I think, in his 60s at that point, and I knew if I didn't move back, there was going to be a lot of knowledge base that I still wanted that I wasn't going to be able to get. So I moved back in, it was April of 2010. I became a project manager. I bid and estimated, anything from parking lots to municipal work, then up to highway work. But I was a project manager for, I'm going to say 6 or 7 years. So, really, I was not thrown by any means into a management role, and also got experience, had field experience. And now I'm getting the chance to actually estimate a job, build it, try and make money on it. And at that point, the company had diversified quite a bit. So some of the, a lot of the same people were in the field that would then help me learn how to bid the job, production, quantities, and whatnot. So, I think A, putting me in that role really helped out. And B, my experience as a kid growing up with a lot of these same guys really helped out, because they knew down the road, most likely I would be president. So they wanted to help me, to help themselves. But it was a good way to mesh that and to help me understand. And then from then they've got me involved with the asphalt plants, which we've got 5 plants now. But it was pricing material, which forced me to understand, all of the rock, aggregate, oil, sand, and whatnot that goes in, how to put a price together for a specific mix, and then also get involved on the QC level. I got all of my certifications. I think they're probably expired now. And it was never so I was going to go work in the lab and, basically do the testing that they do, but have an understanding and knowledge of it and behind it and who are good people to have in the labs.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't get into a management role until about 2020. And I would say that has probably been the most difficult piece of all of it.
How was it like coming into the management role then? Like, because your dad's a manager and you're a manager, and then is he still with the company or has he phased out now? I don't see him like in the leadership team pictures, so that's how I don't know.
He's the chief landscaping officer, remember?
Oh, so now he's running the weed eater.
We've got two big prairies at our office. We did a big burn on Friday. No, my mom and dad are big green thumbs as well. And so he formally retired in 2017, I believe, and put a gentleman named Jim Fitzgerald into the president's role at that point in time. Jim is still here. He transitioned to CEO January 1, which is when I became president, but Jim's been here 31 years, kind of notch into the belt by, on how people stick around here for a long time. But with that is a huge knowledge base of what has happened the last 25, 30 years. When they essentially made me a VP and put me into a management role with really out much guidance. Like, here, you're VP. I'm like, okay, what do I do? I still don't really think I was given much at that point. But at that point, Jim and I set a 5-year transition plan. Right then and there was when I was like, oh shit, what my dad discussed as a kid is like, the clock's ticking now. And I'm thrown into a management role and I really don't know what I'm supposed to manage or do.
I get it. It's like sink or swim when you get to management. It's like all those problem solving skills that you learned in all your other roles are going to be the most essential thing that you own because you don't know how to do anything that you're doing every single day. Welcome to discomfort, friends.
100%. And I think, and my dad had been retired for 2 or 3 years at that point. Now, my dad's in the office today. He's always there for, guidance or problem solving. But even, I think the best time that I had with my dad was from 2010 to 2017, 18 when he retired, and to get his knowledge base. In the company today, I think is at a place that he nor my mom ever expected. And I think a little bit out of their comfort zone, where with as much knowledge as I've gotten, it's kind of in my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2020 or 21 is really when I said, all right, Jim, let me run with some ideas, but I'm going to need some help when, you're not around. And we joined a peer group that I brought up earlier. We started working with a business coach in either 2020 or 21, things that this company had never done, but I knew was going to help myself and the company out in the long run. Both of those and other things have really helped us make the leap from where we were then even to today. So I've had plenty of help. I'm not scared to say it because people have to realize when they get to a point of discomfort, go out and find help to keep the business successful and to keep it going, keep the doors open.
So if someone was thinking about going and joining their family business, is there any piece of advice that you would give them before they just jumped in with both feet?
I would say don't, depending on the business, but don't start in the office and don't start in a management role. You've got to understand the business before you can actually manage it. You don't have to go and put your kid on a highway for 6 or 7 years. But I think the kid has to want it for the right reasons, not just for money, and they've got to want it and they need to get experience in different aspects of the business and be able to understand that. I look at it, I don't have to be the best field laborer. I don't have to run QC at our plants. I don't have to run the asphalt plant. but I need to be able to understand it and to be able to hire the right people to do those things and somehow mesh it all together.
Well, and it sounds like one of the ways that you guys kept from stepping on each other's toes was having clearly defined roles as you were coming up and learning the trades. And your dad wasn't necessarily the person who sat next to you every day and trained you how to do it. He had a skilled person that was training you how to do it. And so that made it easier.
He had a team of people that had been here for a long time that wanted to help groom me. I think I was probably the most fortunate in that. And they all had different skill sets, and whether they're still here today or not, I still talk to some of those people, and all of those people are interested in, how we are doing. One of them called me a couple of weeks ago. I saw this, newspaper article. I mean, we picked up a huge design build project with MoDOT that I don't think, we ever anticipated being able to complete or pick up. And it's just, the company has gone to a different level, and it's been exciting to be a part of that process and be right in the middle of it.
I bet some of that outcome is based on the work that you guys did last year. You said you spent a lot of time defining like your values and your goals and your 5-year plan. So what made you guys take that step back and do that? I feel like a lot of us just kind of work, keep our heads down, get the job done. But you guys took a moment to breathe and like look forward. So what was the catalyst behind that?
I think it's really getting to the point of where I want to take this company. And again, it was one of those things that's like, I know we need help. The statistics of third generation companies are not great. And some of that is, I'm lucky because my dad was an only child and my sister's not involved in the business. My brother never had any desire to be involved in the business. But like for me, growing up, it's like, you don't want to be the one with, oh yeah, he took it over and he ran it in the ground, and so I think that's driven me a lot more to do things right and to try and get the right people here. So I don't do that. And I mean, we suck at processes. Like we have like 2 written processes, but we had people retiring and, we hire someone say for, accounting or payroll. I'm like, all right, what do I do? And I'm like, I don't know. You just do what they did. Like they did it for 30 years. So you got this. Like, what? We didn't have a budget for the first 66 years of the company. Like we brought in a new controller a couple of years ago and she's like, how do you operate? And like, we bid work and we build work and we bill for it and we get paid for it. It's like, this is insanity. But it's things like that. I look back and I'm like, things work for a period of time, but there's also going to be a period of time where they don't work. And our controller's first year, we had a great year. The second year was our COVID year, and we had a really down year, and realized that her helping us get on a budget was absolutely necessary, so that didn't happen again, and we could actually predict when things would be down and make necessary cuts. Or I just also be able to, when do you buy, new equipment? Well, we buy new equipment when the old one breaks. Well, how do you know you got enough money? Well, we usually have enough money. We're good. Trust us. But I think we've been able to mesh, kind of our old way of not necessarily flying by the seat of our pants, but people around here have always had a pulse on operations and how things are going. Occasionally there's something that was far off, but now we're at the point where we've got a budget, but we also have a good operational pulse, and it allows us to make kind of future decisions better and easier, not on a whim. I think for a long time, the way this place operated was show up, put your head down, do the work, go on. And I think that's fine and dandy until you get to a certain size where you really have to be more methodical about things. Getting back to the question, I knew we were at that point, but needed help to do it. But even in starting that out, you really kind of have to define who you are, what you want to be, and get the right people on your team. A lot of what we've been doing is really getting the right person in the right seat. And, as a smaller family business, you have people that wear multiple hats, and all of a sudden you have people that wear multiple hats, but some people are doing the same thing wearing, like, you got 2 people doing a process this way. It's like, well, why don't we just have one? And like, why don't we
Mm-hmm.
clearly define roles? Um, I mean, in your organization, I'm sure you have a number of people wearing multiple hats. But if you had 10 times the people, you're probably going to define their roles a little bit better. And
Yeah.
that's where we were.
It does get tricky. And what was interesting though is on the flip side of it, when we were really small and we had like, just 3 or 4 employees, everyone had their hats in their lane and no one overlapped. And then when Stacy and I started having babies, it was a problem. Because we had no one that could do our jobs. And so after our first babies and watching revenue dip for like over 6 months, because we would take a short maternity leave, like 6 weeks, and then come back, but it was like a 6 month hit to revenue. And so then we were like, oh my gosh, we have to hire a few more people and cross train folks. So that way we're not completely exploding and setting ourselves back 6 months every time we have children. Cause it's real, man. It's real.
And
Like,
it's well, and it's not fair to you two. So, and I think that's, I mean, kind of our big realization. It's not fair that, you know, people have two bosses or don't know who their boss is or aren't held accountable. I
mhm.
use that word, in the real way. It's not fair when you got someone pulling, 80% of the weight and someone else pulling 10 of a specific task. So, um, it it was stepping back and admitting like we've got problems. Let's do what we can to fix them. And I think it's not a 1 year journey though. We've done a good
Mhm.
job. We still have a long way to go. We're not 100% there, and I don't know if we'll ever be 100%, but you at least have to be working on it.
100%. Yes, working on it. Now, I think one of the things that's going to get you there is that you have the don't give up attitude, right? It's like a superpower. I I am also like I don't take no for an answer and I'm not giving up. It's woohoo superpower, Chris. But you had mentioned that you're a bit of a procrastinator when we were planning this interview. So tell me how you keep moving forward despite being a procrastinator, because I bet there's a lot of people in your shoes.
I would say the kind of not giving up is somewhat. I think it's different than procrastinating. It's probably more innate. I think the not giving up thing comes again somewhat innate, but I was thrown into a lot of situations as a kid where you've got to get to the other side. I mentioned that I went to a outdoors camp for a couple weeks for about 4 summers, but it was a relatively hardcore camp built to train kids to go out to World War I, be able to live out in the woods. And we had, I think when I was 17, we did a 550-mile canoe trip from, we lake jumped for like 10 days and then ended up on a river called the Seal River that dumped into Hudson Bay. Like, one of the days we had a 10-mile portage. That's hauling your canoe, all your equipment through muck and mud. And, I mean, you get in those situations and you kind of hate yourself. You're like, what the hell am I doing? But it's like, okay, the only way I'm going to get through this is to put one foot forward and keep walking, like
Mm-hmm.
with this canoe on top of me through the woods, getting bit by mosquitoes. Like, but it's funny. You come back and, I had done 4 different trips like that and all gradually a little bit longer. But, you know, the first time you're not having fun. You don't like it. And then all of a sudden you go back, you're in school, you're telling people stories and you're like, actually, it was kind of fun. Bonded with 12 different people over, a 2 week period. And we were in the middle of nowhere with nothing to do other than get through the trip. That was almost kind of a enjoy punishing yourself moment. And so I want to go back, the next summer for a couple of weeks. Um, I look back at that. I'm like, for like a don't give up attitude, I think that was probably the biggest thing is going to that camp and being put in a situation where you can't. And we don't have I think the last trip we were so far out, we had a GPS phone, but the other trips, like you got no choice. You're going to make it through. I just, there are some things in business or life that, you expect to be done in an hour and it takes a day, or you expect to be done in 2 weeks and it takes 2 months. The minute you give up on it is the minute you've quit on your team. So here,
Mm-hmm.
even if things don't get done as quickly as we would want, see it through, finish it.
So how do you manage your want to procrastinate, the putting it off? Are you an eat the frog guy? Have you heard that saying where you're like, I'm going to do the thing I don't want to do first? How do you overcome it?
I've spent a lot of time trying to fix my procrastination problem. Some things have worked, some things haven't. But my mom sent me a TED talk. Adam Grant. It was a TED talk on actually why certain times procrastinating is not bad, and it talks a lot about people that get up and have a task to do and don't procrastinate. They get it done, or they write their paper and turn it in. And the people that procrastinate, they end up thinking about it more and really have more time to come up with, a good idea or a better solution. And I've noticed that, it's probably been a month since I watched it. I realized that sometimes when I'd get to that where I'm like, all right, I got to get it done. Well, I had 3 or 4 different thoughts. And then at the last minute, the really good idea hit me. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I waited. So there's things you can procrastinate on. There's things that you can't. But I think the ones that deserve more time to be thought about and you have time, let it hang out there.
I agree. Like with our designers, we always encourage them to look over the details of their work a few days ahead of time because especially for really intensely like artistic and creative projects, I need my brain to like subconsciously process everything. And then when I sit down to do it, I've got like 17 ideas. Like it's going to come to me while I'm running or when I'm in the shower or when I'm doing the dishes. Like it's not when I'm sitting at my desk expecting my brain to output creative crap. It's never coming then. So I guess I'm using a form of procrastination to do just what you're talking about there, to like let my brain process it so the good stuff will come out later.
Yeah, I didn't make. So I was like, oh, it's a good thing I procrastinate. Like this isn't a bad thing.
Well, Chris, we're going to wrap up now. So, is there any last words that you would like to leave everybody with after this awesome interview? And how can they get a hold of you also?
Email, LinkedIn, Facebook's usually the easiest ways. I'm trying not to be on those all the time, but I do like LinkedIn communication. So email is good as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think something that I think about a fair amount in growing up is I'm really glad my dad put me through it the way he did. And I have a very humble attitude about most everything. Talk to everyone in your business the same. Talk to field labor operator or mechanic the same as, another VP of the company. I think the minute anyone feels like you're talking down to them is the minute you become a boss, not a leader. Give people the time of day, answer your phone. I would say most everyone in the company has my phone number. Now, there's maybe a few that call me too much, but I think they appreciate the ability to call me if they really feel like they need to express something or they saw something, on that, set boundaries, because you will have people abuse it. It took me, I think, a lot of time to actually not take on problems that should be other people's problems. I always wanted to solve any problem that was thrown in my lap, I took pride in it until it became too much. I remember days where I'd have 150 phone calls. Like I could have pawned some of those off, or maybe I shouldn't have called someone to start something. So now I really I try and keep a pulse on everything, but I let the problems rise and try.
I think that is excellent advice. The minute that people feel like you're talking down to them, you become a boss, not a leader. So that is great parting advice. That's awesome. And I try to use the same thing with my kids. It's not always easy. Man, it's not easy. But I feel like treating them like people is a lot easier than treating them like people I'm trying to dominate.
Hey, just act like a kid sometimes.
Yes, exactly. Full circle, and act like a kid sometimes. Well, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us, Chris. And thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us and listening. And be sure to subscribe so that way you don't miss next week's episode. It's one that I've been promising everyone for a really long time. Travis and Stacy are joining me again, and we are going to completely geek out about the difference between domains, hosting, and website. They are really intangible, but they're so important for your business. And we talk about these things every day, but for normal humans, they kind of create a question factory. So we'll answer what a domain is, how you get one, how you connect everything together, what hosting is, if you need it, and which one to pick. All right. So subscribe or meet me back over on the Marketing with Purpose podcast, and we'll talk all about domains, hosting, and websites next week. All right, friends, thank you again so much for listening. And until next time, go forth and market with purpose.